This week, we celebrate the Feast of Corpus Christi. We also mark the anniversary of the death of Pope John XXIII, and we have details on the Pope's encyclical. Hello and welcome to this edition of Vatican Connections. Now, the Pope has been getting ready for his upcoming trips, but we've got details coming out about other papal events. Let's take a look. We know that Pope Francis has written an encyclical on caring for creation, and this week we got some important details about that document. Now, while addressing a small group of writers attending an awards ceremony in Naples, the head of the Vatican publishing house, Father Giuseppe Costa, commented that he has been receiving a lot of calls from international publishers interested in acquiring the rights for the papal encyclical Laudato Si, and which he expects to be released around mid-June. Now, the Vatican press office has confirmed the encyclical will be released June 18th. The title, however, has not yet been confirmed. If it is in fact Laudato Si, or if that's part of the title, it's important because this is the phrase that starts all of the verses of St. Francis of Assisi's Canticle of Creation. In English, it translates to "be praised." In any case, it links the document to St. Francis of Assisi, and it's a powerful reminder that taking care of the earth and all of God's creations is not a new or even a modern idea. During the Jubilee year for mercy, Pope Francis hopes to encourage the faithful to engage in the sacrament of mercy, namely reconciliation, and encourage priests to make that sacrament even more widely available. Of course, he also wants them to make that sacrament feel like an encounter with mercy and not a moment of torture. So, how to reinforce that aspect of a sacrament that even many committed Catholics run away from? Well, reportedly, Pope Francis has decided to have the bodies of St. Padre Pio and St. Leopold Mandic on display for veneration at St. Peter's during the Jubilee year, starting February 10th, 2016. That same day, there's going to be a special ceremony at St. Peter's Basilica to send forth the missionaries of mercy. Those are the specially selected priests who will go to dioceses to hear confessions. And last week, the Vatican Bank released its annual report detailing how much money is made and lost. This week, the Vatican's Financial Information Authority issued its own report about how the Vatican Bank is doing following anti-money laundering rules. The main thing the report looked at was how many suspicious transactions were flagged by the bank and reported to the Financial Information Authority. 147 transactions were deemed suspicious in 2014 and passed along for further investigation. The Financial Information Authority looked into those transactions and sent 7 to the Vatican's Promoter of Justice, or Chief Prosecutor. These 7 cases involved potential fraud, tax evasion, or tax fraud. Meanwhile, 3 transactions were actually suspended altogether. Now, the numbers of suspicious transactions might seem high, but according to René Brulhart, the head of the Financial Information Authority, it means the system is actually working. So if we look back over the last 3 years, in 2012, only 6 suspicious transactions were reported by the bank. But in 2013, when the new rules about money laundering and procedures were implemented, 202 were reported. And you may have heard about a recent interview given by one of the members of the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors. In an interview with an Australian news crew, Peter Saunders said Cardinal George Pell's handling of abuse victims was, quote, almost sociopathic. Cardinal Pell and the Australian Church have been investigated by the government in Australia several times to determine whether abuse allegations were ignored or covered up. In the most recent inquiry, one abuse survivor actually claimed that Cardinal Pell tried to bribe him to stay quiet. Cardinal Pell has denied the allegation. Now, the Vatican was quick to issue a statement saying that Saunders' comments in the interview are his own personal opinion and not the official position of the Child Protection Committee. The Secretariat for the Economy also issued a statement saying the Cardinal is consulting legal advisors about what, if anything, he can do about the report broadcast on Australian TV. Meanwhile, the Commission for the Protection of Minors also issued a statement saying it has no jurisdiction to comment on individual cases, but it is dedicated to helping the Church put victims first by making sure that people in positions of authority in the Church respond quickly and transparently to any allegations. Finally, there's a new development in the relationship between the Holy See and the Society of Pius X. This week, the head of the Society revealed that he has been named by the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith as a first instance judge on a case that is being brought before the CDF. It involves a priest from the Society of Pius X. Now, it should be noted the Society does submit cases to the Vatican when they involve grave crimes or a priest needing dispensation from the clerical state. But this is the first time that the CDF has actually named a Pius X priest as a judge on a case. Now remember though, when a case is submitted to the CDF, the bishop or the religious superior is always asked to do a preliminary investigation and submit a report to the congregation. Did you know? The Canticle of Creation was composed in 1224 by St. Francis of Assisi and is also known as the Canticle of Brother Sun. It has 3 sections praising different things: God, all God's creatures, and all who forgive in the name of God. On June 3, 1963, while a Mass was being celebrated in St. Peter's Square right under his window, Pope John XXIII died, ending a 5-year pontificate. Now, despite its length, that pontificate changed the face of the Church forever with the Second Vatican Council. You'd think that to have such an impact, the Pope in question must have been a big deal, so to speak. But Pope John only ever thought of himself as a simple farmer's son who was just blessed to have some extraordinary experiences and a really good relationship with the Holy Spirit. Here's a look at the life and papacy of Angelo Roncalli.
In questo paese, io sono 23 anni che sono qui, a me questa gente fa l'impressione che sono un po' rozzi, se vuole, no? Non sono complimentosi, laboriosi, il lavoro è il lavoro. L'inclinazione è veramente verso la bontà, la laboriosità e l'onestà. I Roncalli tra parenti saranno più di 200 qui. Il mio medico è un pronipote di Papa Giovanni e questo, gli dico sempre Fabrizio, assomigli tutto a Papa Giovanni.
On November 25, 1881, Angelo Giuseppe Roncalli, John XXIII, was born in the village of Sotto il Monte, Italy, about 25 miles northeast of Milan. Angelo was the 4th of 13 children in a family of sharecroppers. When he was still a toddler, they moved to a nearby property which they later purchased, and which remains in the Roncalli family to this day. On the day he was born, Angelo was taken to be baptized in nearby St. Mary's Church. Here, almost 23 years later, the newly ordained Father Angelo said his first Mass. St. Mary's has been the place where we grew in the love of the Lord. In this church, we laid the foundation that led us to the highest ministry. After a distinguished career as a Vatican diplomat and Patriarch of Venice, Cardinal Roncalli was elected Pope on October 28, 1958. He never visited his hometown again, but willed that his birthplace become the site of a seminary for missionaries. Today, the seminary complex includes a chapel with relics of the late Pope, who was beatified in the year 2000, and rooms full of votive offerings from those who have had prayers answered. Pilgrims and tourists can also visit a museum housed in a mansion on property once belonging to the Roncalli family. Among the exhibits here are personal objects and the bed where he died on June 3, 1963. The curator of the collection is Archbishop Loris Capovilla, the late Pope's former secretary, who continues to serve as the chief custodian of Blessed John's legacy.
Dice, vengo dalla campagna, dalla povertà, povertà contenta e benedetta, non maledetta, non subita, contenta e benedetta. Scrive una volta da Parigi, dice, sono in questa grande Parigi dove tutto stupisce, tutto è grande e bello, però tutti i giorni penso ai miei fratelli o nipoti con la schiena scoperta, piegati sui solchi a irrorare la terra col loro sudore. Scrive un suo fratello, Giuseppino, ricordatelo, non è la nobiltà dei natali, conte, marchese, o la ricchezza che fa degna una persona, ma la laboriosità, l'onestà e il Vangelo conosciuto e praticato. E allora conosco Papa Giovanni dal 1935. Il 2 novembre 1958, cioè 5 giorni dopo la elezione, il cardinale Ernesto Ruffini, come tutti i cardinali, a turno è andato in udienza dal Papa. Ha detto abbiamo parecchi problemi, situazioni difficili, sia di carattere religioso, storico, diplomatico. E nella carta delle udienze il Papa scrive la parola per la prima volta, concilio. Anche altri vescovi, tutti portavano vari temi, molti erano per la riforma liturgica dei seminari, della disciplina del clero, problemi non dottrinali ma pastorali. Passano 20 giorni, mi dice sul mio tavolo si accumulano problemi, domande, richieste, speranze, ci vorrebbe proprio un concilio. E io ho taciuto. Dice, mi sono chiesto perché il mio segretario gli faccio una confidenza una volta, una seconda volta, non dice nulla. No, ma io so perché tu hai fatto questo. Tu hai pensato, è vecchio? No, sì, ma poi ti sei preoccupato. Se tu hai fatto con buona intenzione, cioè è vecchio, ma si mette un pasticcio di questo, in questo compito così enorme, non avrai il tempo. Perché tu, se ragioni come un commendatore, un delegato di banca, non è mica così che si ragiona con la fede. Ricevere una buona ispirazione e guardarla con ammirazione e dire oh quanto mi piacerebbe, è già un grande merito. Se poi Dio ti concedesse di trovare con l'aiuto dei collaboratori che ti incoraggia ad andare avanti, meglio ancora. E se tu cominciassi anche solo con la commissione antepreparatoria, è già un grande merito. Se tu muori e viene un altro e dice grande onore anche solo cominciare. Ma perché Papa Giovanni ha fatto il concilio? Papa Giovanni, parlando con il suo segretario di Stato, ha detto guardi che dopo la seconda guerra mondiale è molto bello che siano sorti 3 istituti internazionali e sono nati in America. L'ONU per la pace, la FAO per il pane, l'UNESCO per la cultura. Io sono il Papa, Non ricevo sempre, si fanno congressi di filosofia, di letteratura, di commercio, perché noi ci troviamo anche noi insieme a parlare. Avrebbe ripetuto questo, come ha detto all'inizio del concilio, no? L'ha detto, entriamo in concilio con il patrimonio della tradizione da Nicea sino al concilio di Trento e il Vaticano I. L'ha detto chiaro questo, cosa doveva dire di più? Proprio perché era un grande conservatore, ha potuto portare al mondo un messaggio di amore, di speranza e di fiducia.
Let's take a look now at what Pope Francis has been doing all week. Over the weekend, Pope Francis had some special visitors who got the VIP treatment at the Vatican. They're a group of children whose parents are incarcerated, and they got to ride on a special train that pulled into the Vatican train station where the Pope was waiting on the platform. Later in the audience hall, they gathered around for a private chat with Pope Francis, who talked to them about prayer, especially prayer to our Blessed Mother. Wednesday was the general audience, and Pope Francis started a new series of catechesis on the issues that face the family. He also spoke about what it means to have a poor church. Ben CNS has more details.
Una Chiesa povera è una Chiesa che pratica una volontaria semplicità nella propria vita, nelle sue stesse istituzioni, nello stile di vita dei suoi membri, per abbattere ogni muro di separazione, soprattutto dai poveri. Ci vogliono la preghiera e l'azione. Preghiamo intensamente il Signore che ci scuota per rendere le nostre famiglie cristiane protagoniste di questa rivoluzione della prossimità familiare che ora ci è così necessaria. Di essa, di questa prossimità familiare, dall'inizio è fatta la Chiesa. E non dimentichiamo che il giudizio dei bisognosi, dei piccoli e dei poveri anticipa il giudizio di Dio. Non dimentichiamo questo e facciamo tutto quello che noi possiamo per aiutare le famiglie a andare avanti nella prova della povertà e della miseria che colpiscono gli affetti, i legami familiari. Io vorrei leggere un'altra volta il testo della Bibbia che abbiamo ascoltato all'inizio e ognuno di noi pensi alle famiglie che fanno la prova, sono provate della miseria e della povertà. La Bibbia dice così: figlio, non rifiutare al povero il necessario per la vita, non essere insensibile allo sguardo dei bisognosi. Ma pensiamo a ogni parola, Non rattristare chi ha fame, non esasperare chi è in difficoltà, non turbare un cuore già esasperato, non negare un dono al bisognoso, non respingere la supplica del povero, non distogliere lo sguardo dall'indigente. Da chi ti chiede non distogliere lo sguardo. e non dare a lui l'occasione di maledirti, perché questo sarà quello che farà il Signore, lo dice nel Vangelo, se non facciamo queste cose.
Thursday was the Feast of the Body and Blood of Christ, or Corpus Christi. Now, in Italy and most of Europe, the solemnity is celebrated on the first Thursday after Trinity Sunday, and it's a holiday. In Canada and the US, the feast is moved to the next Sunday. In keeping with Roman tradition, the Pope celebrated Mass at the Basilica of St. John Lateran. After Mass, there was a Eucharistic procession to the Basilica of St. Mary Major, where Pope Francis was waiting, and he imparted benediction on the crowds that took part in the procession. During his homily, he said that the Eucharist is not a prize for the very good, but it's also strength for the weak. And Friday was a quiet day in preparation for the Pope's visit to Sarajevo. Vatican Connections is interactive. We answer your questions and explain things you want to know. You can reach us on Twitter at VatiConnections or by email at info@saltandlighttv.org. We'll try our best to answer your questions during this part of our show. Well, that's it for this edition of Vatican Connections. Join us again next week for more about what's going on at the Vatican. And as always, you can watch us on Roku TV on demand if you missed anything. Follow us on Twitter or check our blog for regular updates. From everyone here, thanks for watching. See you next time.